What's going on YouTube? Bacon here bringing another video. This one going to be my semifinals match for the OLT Harmony Division Season 5. This week we are taking on Miso Soup, coach of the Murfressburo Blazikens. So like I mentioned in my previous video, we did end up with the number 2 overall seed in the league, which means we got a bye straight to finals, or excuse me, semifinals. And in semifinals we were playing Miso, who's the number 1 overall seed. He actually went undefeated this season at 8-0. We of course are coming in pretty strong ourselves at 7-1, actually on a 7-game win streak since we lost our first game of the season. Definitely hoping to pick up a W here, of course. I believe winners guaranteed promotion to the Oblivion League, which is the main league for OLT in the next season. So definitely have my eye on that, of course. And I think if you win the overall league, you can invite somebody to OLT. So that would be cool too, if I could pick up the win here. And in my next game as well, to get a kind of free invite for somebody that I would like to see play in OLT. But definitely got to focus on one game at a time here, and got a very difficult opponent on tap. He went undefeated for a reason, very good player, pretty solid team as well. But let's get right into the team builder here. So Miso's got available the Mega Mawile, Kommo-o, Gliscor, Azelf, Zarina, Alolan Ninetales, Circuitry, Vaporeon, Victini, and Haunter. You'll notice a lot of these Pokemon are Pokemon that I've used in some of my other leagues. Mega Mawile and Gliscor I currently have in the SSBL. Vaporeon, Victini I currently have in the VPL, which that game will be coming. The finals game for VPL will be coming. I should be playing it this weekend and should be able to get that out to you guys maybe next week, potentially the week afterwards, depending on when I get a chance to record it. But yeah, so a couple Pokemon that I'm very familiar with, but definitely big threats. Defensively, Gliscor is kind of, I think, would be running more of a defensive set versus me. Subtoxic is potentially pretty scary because most of my team is very slow. So if he's running something like Subtoxic Protect with Earthquake, that could potentially be very, very annoying for my team to deal with. I do have the Celebi that can kind of help out with that kind of set, but Gliscor also has potential to be running Knockoff, U-Turn, whatever, that potentially threat my Celebi as well. So even though Gliscor can't be running all of these things at once, the fact that it has access to all of these different options versus me, and a couple of them being very, very effective, are definitely very problematic. I'm thinking he'd run more of a specially defensive variant of Gliscor, but I'm not certain. Like, that'll help him take on Rotom Heat a little bit better. It'll help him take on a special variant of Toxicroak. It'll help him take on my Mega Diancie, assuming I'm not running HP Ice. So I was thinking he'd lean more towards the especially defensive side with Gliscor, but as for the set, he could run any number of things. It could be like Stealth Rock Defog, he could be U-Turn, he could be the Subtoxic set like I mentioned. He could potentially be SD, but I don't think SD is particularly good versus my team. So basically the Gliscor is kind of a great check to my Crocodile. Even without physical defense investment, Crocodile's really not doing a whole lot to Gliscor. It can potentially soft check my Mega Diancie, and I wouldn't bring in a Gliscor hard on Mega Diancie ever, but at like kind of a free switch kind of situation, it could potentially be a check to my Mega Diancie that way. So that's kind of a threat to my team. Mega Mawile is always pretty scary, but in this case I think my team's kind of got outs for it, I'll say. Like Sucker Punch he kind of has to bring to be effective versus my team, but at the same time, if he is bringing Sucker Punch, he's lacking coverage. He's probably going to want a Fire-type move to hit my Scizor. He's probably going to want a Steel-type move to kill my Diancie. Probably Play Rough to hit my Crocodile and my Dragonite. Like, even if he's running all those moves, what's he going to do to Rotom Heat? Like, I can just Will-O-Wisp him. So he's got some coverage issues with Mega Mawile this game, but still can never discount that thing as a threat for sure. And then kind of Victini was the last kind of big offensive threat that I was looking at. Well, second to last. We'll talk about the next one in a second. But Victini is a huge threat to my team as well. My Fire Resist really don't appreciate just coming in on Psychic types all over the course of the game, and he could potentially take advantage of me with U-Turn. I'm thinking he'd lean more towards Choice Scarf Victini this week, just because otherwise he really doesn't have a lot of ways to outspeed my Mega Diancie. He doesn't have a whole lot of viable Choice Scarfers on my team, so it's either going to be like Choice Scarf Victini, Circuitry, or Serena. I don't think Choice Scarf Circuitry, or really any Circuitry, makes a whole lot of sense versus me, so that was kind of out. Serena Choice Scarf could potentially make some sense, but even then it would be walled by Scizor. So I felt like Victini was kind of the most likely bring as the Choice Scarf for this week. If he's not running Choice Scarf, he could potentially be running like a Flame Charge type set. But Victini is just a huge problem for me to deal with. I'm definitely going to have to limit that switch-ins over the course of the match by getting up Stealth Rocks, and hopefully be able to chip that thing down sufficiently to win the game later. And then kind of lastly, the Kommo +1 is just a huge threat to my team. Bulky variant of Celebi can live a +1 Z move from the Como, like +1 Z outrage, but not super comfortably, and I might not be able to OHKO him back depending on his investment. So Como is just a huge problem for my team. I can't let that thing get Dragon Dances up for free. I have to find ways over the course of the match to deny it from getting set up versus me, and hopefully prevent it from sweeping my team in the late game. So those are kind of the big offensive threats that I was looking at when kind of addressing his team. And with that in mind, let's get into my team builder here. Kind of looking at the start here, Mega Diance's got a great matchup on paper. Like I mentioned, the only thing that naturally outspeeds it on his team is the Azelf, and a potential Choice Scarf variant of Serena or Crocodile, or not Crocodile, Xurkitree or Victini are really kind of the main things that would be outspeeding my Diancie this game. Just a really great matchup on paper. Moonblast plus Earth Power hits his team incredibly hard, and I decided to stack on Diamond Storm there as well. I was kind of torn between running a special set, or full-on special set, or running mixed Diancie. I felt like Diamond Storm was kind of nice because I could potentially get a boost on like the switch in the Gliscor or something like that, and at +2 defense, Earthquake's not going to be knocking me out in return. I can go ahead and just two-hit KO that thing with Moonblast in return. So I felt like the potential to get the defense boost would be really nice, and also if he's running physical Choice Scarf Victini, the defense boost would also be really nice for that. And I elected to go with Rock Polish as my last move here. I think this probably should have been Calm Mind, and you'll see why in the match here, but I think this probably should have been Calm Mind Diancie. Like I mentioned, Azelf being the only thing that outspeeds me is really nice for Diancie in this matchup. It has all the coverage it needs in just Moonblast and Earth Power, but I could run like Power Gem too for some super effective stab on like Victini. But I think Diancie just had a really good matchup here, and Rock Polish is solid. Like if I'm pretty certain he's going to bring a Choice Scarfer, which I am, Rock Polish is going to be nice to help me potentially outspeed that late in the game. If I get enough chip to put Mawile in range of Earth Power, which really isn't much. I think I need off like 20% or something on the Mawile to get it in range of Earth Power. So Diancie could definitely clean the game after it gets a Rock Polish up, but it's just kind of a matter of getting the chip to get there, whereas Calm Mind could potentially break through some of his walls. It would improve my matchup versus Vaporeon a little bit, because obviously if I go like +1 on the switch in into Vaporeon, and I go +2 while it's in my face, I don't believe it 2-hit KOs me with Scald after that, and I would obviously 2-hit KO it with Moonblast. So kind of unfortunate that I didn't end up running Calm Mind Diancie. You'll see in the game again why that is, but I did end up running Rock Polish this week instead. Next up, we've got Hot Pockets of the Rotom Heat here, running Leftovers, Overheat, Will-O-Wisp, Defog, and HP Ice. So actually not running Electric type coverage or Electric type stab on this Rotom Heat. Another thing that's going to come back to bite me in the butt a little bit here. I felt like Defog was just too important since I've got the 2 Fire type mons on the team this week. I wanted to make sure I had a way to clear Stealth Rocks if he happened to set them. But Overheat, obviously, kind of a nice stab, super effective hit on the Mawile. Should OHKO that thing from full. Even at -2, I'm doing a ton of damage to the Mawile. I've got access to Will-O-Wisp anyways to help deal with it that way. Will-O-Wisp is just basically an out for me versus like SD Sucker Punch Mawile. Obviously, he can't Sucker Punch me if I'm going for Will-O-Wisp. Getting a burn off on pretty much anything on his team would be really nice. Getting a burn off on Gliscor is good to potentially nullify its Toxic Orb if I can hit it before that happens. Getting a burn on Como obviously makes it not very much of a physically offensive threat to my team. He just really doesn't have a whole lot of things that want to be switching in on Rotom Heat and taking that Will-O-Wisp burn. I can threaten out things like Serena, and I can do some big damage actually to Xurkitree if he wants to try and set up in my face or whatever. The other thing that Defog allows me to do is defog screens from the Alolan Ninetales. Defogging screens is nice because if he's setting screens to get like his Xurkitree set up, I don't want to be in a situation where my Crocodile's not going to be able to revenge kill it. So I feel like Defog just to clear hazards and just to clear Aurora Veil was kind of important in this match. Maybe probably should have run an electric type move instead, like Discharge or Volt Switch. But unfortunately I did not, so that's the Rotom Heat set. I think it's still pretty solid in this game. HP Ice is going to do some good damage to the Gliscor and also some okay damage to the Como. Like I mentioned, if I burn that thing, it's not as much of a threat to me anymore. But HP Ice is there specifically for a sub-toxic variant of Gliscor, because if he is running Substitute, he could potentially sub in my face, get his Toxic Orb activated as I go for Will-O-Wisp, and then I'm in a really bad spot. So I wanted to make sure I had the HP Ice eligible just to nuke that Gliscor, and if I can break through the Gliscor early in the game, Diancie's pretty much going to claim KOs when it comes in. So yeah, that's the Rotom Heat set for this game. Just kind of a nice, generally bulky pivot versus team. Also should be able to do some pretty good work with things like Overheat, HP Ice, putting some work that way. Yeah. Next up here is Nixon the Crocodile, running Choice Scarf Crocodile with Intimidate, Earthquake Knockoff, Pursuit, and Outrage. Outrage is just a way for me to check +1 Coma O. It doesn't OHKO it from full, but it should still do like 65% or so, which presumably everything else on my team should be able to get off on the Coma O while it's trying to DD in their face. But yeah, Outrage is just there in case the Coma O happens to get out of control as it starts to Dragon Dance. Intimidate's really nice as an option to kind of nullify some of his damage output, things like blind leads versus Gliscor, blind leads versus Victini. Can really start to ease my switch-ins to some of the other Pokemon on my team. Didn't really feel like a Moxie sweep was happening in this game, just because he does have the Mega Mawile there, and I want to be kind of locking myself into Dark type stab more than I want to be locking myself into Ground type stab. I felt like Intimidate there was just kind of better overall, and even in like blind lead versus Mega Mawile, at least I can get the Intimidate off on that thing, and he might stay in to go for a play rough on me or something like that, but having the -1 on there and being able to get out into something like my Rotom Heat on the switch there is really nice to have the option from with the Intimidate from Crocodile here. And Pursuit's there just to trap Victini. Obviously, if he's V-Create, if he goes for V-Create to knock something out, I'm going to be able to revenge kill that thing with Pursuit afterwards, potentially, assuming he's switching out on me. So that kind of creates a 50-50, I guess, with the Victini, but if he's chipped enough, we could potentially get to a point where the lower defense Victini is no drawback to go out and click Pursuit. And getting rid of that thing would be huge, huge, huge for me, especially like I mentioned, because I am expecting him to run Choice Scarf this week. Being able to remove that threat from my Mega Diancie would be really, really nice. Next up here is Dedicated Sackmon the Scizor, running Akaberry Scizor with Technician, Bullet Punch, U-Turn, Sword Stance, and Roost. Running max HP, good bit into physical attack investment, Adamant Nature. I believe just enough speed to creep, what is that, like a base 50 max speed? Yeah, just enough speed to creep Adamant Mawile. So I'm guaranteed faster than that thing. I can roost in its face kind of deal. He might be carrying fire coverage on the Mawile, so that's why I've got the Akaberry on there. It also helps me take general fire moves from his team, like Azelf gets fire coverage, Como gets fire coverage. He'll probably be running like HP Fire on his Ninetales if he brings that. Not taking a hit from Victini either way, like it's just not happening. But the Akaberry, like I mentioned, has some pretty nice coverage versus team, and I really didn't feel like I needed another item on my Scizor here. SD Scizor can be pretty nice this game to start kind of not breaking his walls, but starting to chip them pretty heavily. Things like the Vaporeon, if I +2 U-turn on it, should do some good damage. I could potentially go out into something like my Celebi to eat those hits, or my Volcanion even. So U-turn is kind of nice this game as well for initiative. I can U-turn pretty freely at lead on something like Focus Sash Azelf. If he wants to go for that fire type move, I'll live it with my Akaberry, be able to knock him down to his Focus Sash and potentially revenge kill him with Crocodile. Maybe even deny rocks from his side of the field would be really nice from my Scizor there. Just getting that slow U-turn off, I think is going to be a good usage of my my Akaberry in this game. And then I could potentially set up for a late game Bullet Punch sweep. That's really not the whole point of the Scizor in this game. It's mostly there to just kind of threaten some things out, like the Ninetales, and get some good chip damage off on some of his walls, and potentially allow me to clean late game with the Mega Diancie by breaking for it a little bit. Next up here is Serenity the Celebi, running Leftover Celebi with Natural Cure, of course. Stealth Rock, Psychic, Giga Drain, and Future Sight, running max HP pretty close to max physical defense, again, so I can take that +1 Z Outrage from the Como. I believe I even take it after Stealth Rocks if I'm not mistaken, but obviously that thing's a huge, huge set for my team. Definitely wanted to make sure I had that thing dealt with. I'm actually running Future Sight on this set to kind of improve my ability to deny that Como free setup. If I can throw off a Future Sight against something that doesn't threaten me too much, like say Gliscor for example, I can just throw off a Future Sight and potentially pressure his switch-ins that way, and also deny the Como from setting up on something that's a little weaker to it, like a Choice Lock variant of my Crocodile. If I have the Future Sight active, he can't just set up in my face. So that's kind of the idea from the Celebi here. Giga Drain is going to be decent to keep me healthy over the course of the match. I felt like I needed to run a Grass type move this game just because of the Vaporeon, so I didn't end up actually running Leech Seed or Synthesis on this set, so my longevity is a little bit hindered by that for sure. But I felt like I needed the immediate ability to do damage with Psychic to hit the Como, and then kind of the later ability to do damage with Future Sight there. I felt like I kind of needed both of those. And then I really wanted Stealth Rocks in this game, and I didn't think they fit as well on Diancie or Crocodile, so Celebi was kind of the one that got stuck with the Stealth Rocks because I need them to chip down his weak mons, specifically his Victini, but also his old Ninetales as well. Limit those things switch-ins over the course of the match, and really getting the Victini chip down. I believe if he EVs it properly, he should only get 4 switch-ins onto Stealth Rocks, and then not be able to switch out after that. Obviously 4 is kind of a lot if it's killing something every time it comes in, but it's kind of forced to U-turn sometimes in this game. It can't just lock itself into fire type moves willy-nilly, since I do have 3 fire resists running around. Definitely a problem to deal with this game. Needed the Stealth Rocks to help deal with it, but Future Sight I think was too important to not bring in this game. I did consider running Recover on Celebi over Future Sight, but I felt like there were too many things on my team that were going to potentially allow that Como free setup. I really wanted to limit the possibility of that happening in this game. Lastly here, we have Teika the Volcanion, running Leftovers Volcanion with Substitute, Toxic, Steam Eruption, and Flamethrower, running max HP, pretty close to max special attack with a Timid Nature. What this Timid Nature is allowing me to do, I believe, is outspeed and no speed Gliscor if he was happening to run that. Not necessarily something I'd expect to see versus me, but if he did want to run that kind of max specially defensive set like I mentioned earlier, being able to creep that thing would actually be really nice, so I can hit it with a Steam Eruption and do some big damage. Probably knock it out, I would guess, because Volcanion is strong. The main idea of the Subtoxic is to catch the Vaporeon, obviously. Vaporeon's a pretty big defensive threat to my team, so getting a Toxic off on that would be really nice. I don't know if he has room to run Heal Bell this matchup, because if he's running like Scald, Heal Bell, Wish Protect, he's not doing anything to Celebi, and he's really not doing anything to Volcanion either, so I think he'd be more likely to run something like Toxic on his Vaporeon in this game. Or maybe even Ice Beam, I don't really know. Like, he has to be able to touch Volcanion somehow. And if he's running Heal Bell, there's no way that's going to be able to do it. So I don't think he'd be running it. If I can get a Toxic off on the Vaporeon, should be able to wear that thing down over the course of the game. Hopefully put it in range of my Diancie later in the match. And really just kind of beat that thing 1v1. I could sub in its face all day unless he's running like Roar. And again, if he's running Roar, he actually can't hit my Celebi or my Crocodile for really any damage if he's running like Mono Water attack. So yeah, it's the Volcanion set. I can get free substitutes, as I said, on the Vaporeon, and really threaten his team with my dual stab. He doesn't have great switch-ins for the Volcanion. Obviously, Como will resist my dual stab, but 1, it doesn't want to get potentially burned by a Steam Eruption, and 2, I do have the Toxic there to help wear it down. So, yeah, that's the team for this matchup. I think I probably should have considered a little bit more on the Diancie there, and again, we'll get into that in the match here, but otherwise I felt like the team was fairly solid. Maybe could have run Recover on Celebi over Future Sight, but like I mentioned, I was very scared of the Como and the Team Builder, and I wanted to punish all the switch-ins that Celebi forces defensively by having that Future Sight active and kind of getting him to think over the course of the match what's going to need to take this really strong Psychic type attack on any given turn, and be able to take advantage of that myself based on what I think he's going to switch into. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into the match here. So, as you can see, excuse me, my opponent did bring the Gliscor, Mega Mawile, Vaporeon, Victini, Serena, and the Como. Very glad to not see the Azelf, because that's one less thing that's going to be outspeeding my Mega Diancie. As I mentioned, he definitely is going to need to be running a Choice Scarf on this team, and that kind of leaves it to the Victini or to the Serena for the most part in this match. I don't really think he'd be running Choice Scarf on anything else in this game. He could be, but it seems unlikely. Victini seems like the most likely Choice Scarfer on his team, so definitely going to have to keep that in mind. But otherwise, my Diancie looks super good in this matchup. Definitely going to want to keep it in the back for a chance to just start clicking Moonblast versus team. But then kind of at lead here, really nothing wants to deal with my Rotom Heat. Obviously he's got the Gliscor, which I've got HP Ice and Will-O-Wisp for. I've got Will-O-Wisp for the Mawile, I've got Will-O-Wisp for the Serena, the Como. Really the only 2 things that could actually deal okay, quote-unquote, with me are the Vaporeon and the Victini, but he doesn't know that I'm not carrying electric-type moves on this Rotom Heat. So I felt like that was kind of my best lead overall here, was just to lead with Rotom Heat and see what he wants to do. I would threaten out the Vaporeon with a potential Electro-type move, and just be able to get some good damage off on his team, Will-O-Wisp something, whatever. But yeah, let's get right into the match here. So I'm going to lead off with my Rotom Heat. As I mentioned, it matched up way too good versus team here at lead. to not use it. But he's going to lead off with his Gliscor here. So I did mention in my team builder that I was afraid of Subtoxic Gliscor. If he is Subtoxic, Sub is definitely something you can go for here. Protect is something you can go for here. So I'm just going to click Hidden Power and kind of just nullify that maybe 50-50 of whether he was going to go for Sub or not. As it turns out, he's a pretty slow variant of Gliscor. Well, somewhat slow variant of Gliscor at least. My Rotom Heat is actually very fast this game. I'm pretty close to max speed to guarantee outrun the Como. But yeah, I'm able to get big HP Ice damage off that Gliscor, and it's actually dead to Stealth Rocks at this point. So now if you look at Diancie and you look at his team, like, I'm just going to blow away everything with Diancie. I've got Diamond Storm for Victini, Moonblast and Earth Power will KO the Mega Mawile, so you can't switch that in on me. So basically if I can get Diancie in on a free switch to the Como, click Moonblast, basically picking up a KO with Diancie at this point in the game. So already turn 1, pretty fantastic for us, getting rid of that Gliscor as a threat, basically. Anyways, I'm going to go out into Volcanion here on the Victini. I feel like health on Rotom's way too important to be risking at this point in the match, and I kind of want to see what this Victini set is. But he just goes for U-turn there on my Volcanion coming in, and that's going to allow him to get out into pretty much anything of his choice here. He likes to go into the Como first, which is fine by me. I don't want him Dragon Dancing in my face and trying to break really early game here. So what I'm going to do is just throw off a Toxic on this Como, as I'm actually faster. So that turns out to be a very bulky variant of Como, which is nice for me to know at least. It looks like it's probably a good check to something like my Crocodile, maybe my Scizor, a maybe more physically defensive variant of Como here. So I'm thinking like Stealth Rock Toxic, maybe Dual Stab, definitely Drain Punch I would say, but I'm not really sure what other moves he'd be running on it. So I'm just going to go out into Celebi here. He really shouldn't be able to touch Celebi because, like I mentioned, I do live +1 Z move, and he's clearly a more bulky variant of the Como anyways. So Celebi was pretty free here, and I can either set up my Stealth Rocks or just throw off a Future Sight here. I think Stealth Rocks are the better play overall because, like I mentioned, if the Gliscor doesn't come in right now, which it would die to a Psychic on the next turn anyways, if the Gliscor didn't come in right there, it was dead to Stealth Rocks. So getting those Stealth Rocks up means that unless he spins with his Serena at some point, that Gliscor is dead, and I'll be getting some good chip off on the Victini. So predicting him to go for a Rapid Spin here, I'm just going to throw off a Future Sight, as he actually goes for Knockoff right away, which kind of sucks because I really don't have great longevity on my Celebi here, so losing my leftovers is kind of unfortunate, but good play by him there going for Knockoff. I think he was probably predicting my Scizor switch in, but you know, that's fine. I'm just going to go for Psychic here. Whittling down the Serena is really nice for me, as I mentioned, because he has to Rapid Spin eventually, as he does here, and I can just reset my Stealth Rocks on this thing and not care too much. Because that Como is not a more offensive variant, I know that my Celebi is not as useful in this match. It's still useful to some extent for the Vaporeon, but I can just kind of spam Stealth Rocks at him and see what it wants to do, as he's going to go for U-turn here and basically neutralize my Celebi. Again, very unfortunate that I didn't bring Recover on the Celebi, because it is a nice check to the Vaporeon. But the Victini is going to come out here on Stealth Rocks, and that's one switch in for the Victini. Able to take the Future Sight attack reasonably well, but able to start chipping away at this Victini. Like I mentioned, that's going to be super important for me later in the game. And I'm just going to go out to Rotom Heat here. If he wants to U-turn, that's fine. He's still pretty limited in his Stealth Rock switch-ins unless he Rapid Spins again. And Rotom Heat's obviously going to deny him the ability to do so. So yeah, the Como is going to come out here. I could HP Ice this thing for damage, but I'm pretty sure he's just going to try and set Stealth Rocks here. And if he's not setting Stealth Rocks, he's almost definitely going for Toxic this turn. So what I'm going to elect to do is go out into my Celebi. If he attacks, that's fine. That's a Celebi sack, whatever. I can go out into Diancie and start clicking Moonblast. But if he does go for Toxic here, I have the opportunity, if I want to double out of my Celebi here and keep it alive for the Vaporeon. But what I'm going to like to do instead is just go for Psychic. I thought he might sack off his Como there, and I really wanted to catch him if he was doing so. But he makes a good play there and just goes out into the Vaporeon to eat this Psychic. And now kind of my best check to the Vaporeon is unfortunately gone. And my other really good one is Toxic. So definitely getting a little bit weak to Vaporeon at this point in the match, which is kind of unfortunate. I basically have to go out to Volcanion here and hope he's not going to let it get Toxic, because I really want to keep this thing low enough that it'll die to 2 Moonblasts upon switch-in. So I'm actually going to double out into my Diancie here, trying to catch him swapping out into something like his Como. But unfortunately, he just goes for Protect to Scout there. So it's good to know that he has Protect, because he's definitely Wish, Protect, Scald. And then again, like I mentioned, I don't think he'd have Heal Bell on this set, because then he couldn't touch my Volcanion. So I'm just going to go Mega Evolve with my Diancie here. He kind of has to Wish this turn, in my opinion. I don't think you'd Scald when I have Volcanion in the back anyways. So I was thinking he'd Wish this turn for sure, as he does, and then he's got to protect the following turn. Obviously, he's got no choice. I could sit here and just spam Moonblast versus him, but because of the Leftovers recovery and the Wish, he's going to be pretty handily out healing me here, and eventually he's going to get out of range of a 2-hit KO from the Moonblast. So what I like to do is actually go into Crocodile here on the Protect. That way I can get a potential knockoff onto this Vaporeon and at least start to kind of skew that 1v1 a little more in Diance's favor going forward in the match. Obviously, I'm essentially saying I'm going to sack off my Crocodile here just to get the item off of this Vaporeon, but that's fine with me at this point in the game, honestly. Letting my Celebi go down was a huge, huge mistake because it would have been able to sit on this Vaporeon all day, just spam Giga Drain in its face, but now I have a huge, huge Vaporeon problem on my hands, which is kind of ironic considering how much I've used Vaporeon in the VPL. I should know better than this. Than to be getting walled out by a Vaporeon here. But now I'm going to go out into Scizor, predicting again a Wish to come out. And I'm just going to SD in his face. I thought maybe he would Protect there, try to Scat out if I was like Choice Banded U-turn or something like that. Thankfully he does not Scald Burn me there. That would have been super bad. But thankfully he does not Scald Burn me there as I go for SD. And I'm just going to go for U-turn this turn. Unfortunately I wasn't like Buginium or anything this time. That would have been really cool here to have Buginium Z on the Scizor, but U-turn's still going to do a pretty healthy chunk to this Vaporeon, and if he doesn't Wish here, I'm going to be able to get off a Toxic with my Volcanion. So he actually goes for Scald again this turn, not wanting me to get further set up in his face, and that's amazing because now this Vaporeon's ability to wall my entire team is somewhat mitigated because I don't have an electric move on Rotom, and like it's a problem. Like this thing is a huge, huge problem. So I'm just going to go for Toxic here. I really don't care what play he makes, if he sacks Gliscor, if he sacks Como, whatever. I need to get a Toxic off on this Vaporeon right now, or at the very least force it to switch out so it can't keep Wish protecting in my face. So I'm going to go for Toxic here, because I believe he's just going to go for the Wish this turn. That's fine by me. Getting a Toxic off on the Vaporeon, like I mentioned, is going to force it to switch eventually, and if he leaves himself too whittled, he's not going to be able to take 2 hits from my Diancie later in the match. So he's going to go for Wish there. Again, my Volcanion's starting to get a little bit worn down by Toxic damage, but I'm just going to spam Flamethrower at him. I don't want him passing that Wish to anything for free, and at the very least, I can potentially pressure this Vaporeon again to switch out and not keep Wishing in my face. So he goes for Scald there, potentially predicting me to switch out, but Volcanion's basically here for this at this point. Like, this is Volcanion's job, is to get rid of this freaking Vaporeon. So again, going to continue to spam Flamethrower at him. He can't keep Wish protecting in my face because he himself is Toxic. So Flamethrower was a fine play there. Get a good bit of chip damage off on this Como. Toxic damage is also going to continue to rack up on that thing, so that's fine by me. I'm just going to sack off my Volcanion here. I really don't super need it anymore. Think I might even be in range of a Sucker Punch from the Mawile regardless, so it's not super important that I keep it at this point in the match. I already got the Toxic off on the Vaporeon that I wanted, and I'll take the damage on Como where I can get it. That's fine by me, and just be able to go out to my Diancie to revenge kill him afterwards. So Volcanion's going to go down to Toxic damage there, as I said, and Diancie's going to come in here, and he's got no Moonblast switch in. Vaporeon's getting 2-hit KO'd, Mega Mawile's getting 2-hit KO'd by Moonblast and Earth Power, and obviously he's not going to want to go out into his Victini, which might even die to Moonblast at this range, I'm not really sure, after Stealth Rocks, but it would certainly be his last switch into Rocks if he did do that with the Victini. So he's going to like to sack his Gliscor there. I suppose I could have gone for Rock Polish predicting that to happen, but like I really didn't gain anything by Rock Polishing because he could just go out into Mawile afterwards, and I wouldn't knock him out with Earth Power. So unfortunately, there's actually a message in the chat here in the mid-game with from Cena. Imagine if you've been Calm Mind there. Like, yeah, if I had been Calm Mind there, I think I probably just swept from there with my Mega Diancie, because he would have sacked Gliscor as I went +1. I'm going to spoil a little bit. That Victini turned out to be especially offensive Scarf. So if I had gone +1 there, I would have been able to knock out this Vaporeon. Obviously would have knocked out the Mawile, Sarina, and the Como, and then just kind of won the game. So unfortunately I was not Calm Mind. I was Rock Polish there. Huge L, not being Calm Mind there, but you know, it is what it is. I go for Moonblast there on the Gliscor sack, and then Vaporeon comes out, and again, I can't just allow this thing to sit in my face and Wish, so I'm going to go for Moonblast to try and break this Vaporeon as he goes for Scald. That's a pretty good trade on his end, I would say, getting damage off on my Diancie, making sure it's in range of his Victini, but at least I'm able to break through that Vaporeon, help somewhat open a door for my Crocodile. Obviously the Choice Scarf Victini, which at this point in the game we don't technically know that it's Choice Scarf, but when he brings out here on turn 25, now we know it's Choice Scarf. So I don't know why I let my whole team get walled by Vaporeon. That kind of sucked, but I'm going to sack off my Crocodile here. Since I know this is Choice Scarf Victini, Crocodile is really not going to be able to do his job, and it turns out it's actually special Victini anyway, so Crocodile was super not going to be able to do his job, but because he's now special and locked into Blue Flare, I can just freely go out into Rotom Heat and click Overheat here. If he stays in to go for Blue Flare again, it's going to be the last time that he's on the field, which would be great for my Mega Diancie. My Mega Diancie would essentially just win at that point, and if he switches out, as he does here, I'm basically picking up a KO with Overheat. So able to knock out the Serena there upon switch in. It really wasn't doing anything to the rest of my team anyway, so I think that was the right play. And now he's got a couple options. Like, he could go back out into Victini and start clicking Psychic or something, but again, that would be his last switch in on Stealth Rock for Victini. And because he's going to switch in on Stealth Rock and be in range of my Bullet Punch from my Scizor, it means he'd just lose to to Diancie at that point. So he basically has to go into either Como-O or Mega Mawile here. Mega Mawile doesn't super threaten my Rotom Heat. Like I mentioned, even at -2, offensive Overheat from my Rotom Heat here is still going to do a solid chunk to that Mega Mawile. Certainly put him in range of Earth Power from my Mega Diancie, and it's more accurate than Will-O-Wisp anyway, so I'd definitely be going for that. Or he could go out into his Como and take some good chip damage from me, which would also potentially put him in range of my Scizor later in the game. So I think his probably best overall play, depending on his Mawile set, is to go out into the Mawile. If he's running Fire Fang, maybe go out into the Como-O instead, but I felt like he makes the right play here and goes out into the Mawile. Yeah, you know, you can say it's the right play because he's in here on a Rotom Heat. Like, that's kind of a tough thing to say, but I am at -2, so I'm not going to knock him out. And like I mentioned, if he gave me any chip damage on the Como, I'm pretty sure Scizor just won. So Overheat here is going to do some good chunk damage to this Mega Mawile, as he's actually going to reveal the Rock Slide, which is a really nice prep on his end for sure. Bringing the Rock Slide was definitely something I did not expect, but what that does mean for me is that he's lacking a move. I think he definitely has Play Rough. That's guaranteed. He has Play Rough. He's got Rock Slide. He just showed it. Probably SD if I had to guess. And then is the last move Sucker Punch? Is it Iron Head? I'm really not sure. I think he'd run Iron Head to get that guaranteed KO on my Mega Diancie. Play Rough technically does not guarantee KO the Mega Diancie from full, so I felt like he would be more inclined to run no Sucker Punch on this set than run Sucker Punch on it. So my Scizor here actually does not live a Fire Fang if he's carrying it. Even through my Aqua Berry, I don't live Fire Fang. And Bullet Punch is a roll severely not in my favor to KO this Mega Mawile if he's running as much bulk as I think he is. So I felt like it was better to go Diancie here. If he's got Sucker Punch, I'm pretty sure I lose the game anyways. But if he doesn't have Sucker Punch and I go Diancie here, I think I win the game. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go out to Mega Diancie and just click Earth Power this turn. He's got no Earth Power switch in. So Earth Power is going to be able to KO that Mawile. Turns out he was not running Sucker Punch. I don't think he revealed his set at the end of the game, but obviously having the Rock Slide on there was a little bit of a heads up to me that he wouldn't have the Sucker Punch on there. So he's obviously got to go out into his Victini to Revenge Kill me here, which is fine. Just going to sack off my Mega Diancie at this point in the game, and Scizor should be able to clean this matchup. Clicking Bullet Punch, even if the Como-O lives, I do have my Aqua Berry intact still, so he shouldn't be able to knock me out from the range I'm at. And Bullet Punch, like I mentioned, is going to be able to pick off this Victini. He's probably sitting on the other side of the field thinking he's in a good spot because like he actually does have Fire Punch on his Como, as you're about to see. But thankfully I brought that Aqua Berry tech on the Scizor. Finally, I think this is the first time I brought Aqua Berry Scizor and it's actually procced in a meaningful scenario. So thankfully I was running the Aqua Berry this week on the Scizor, able to take the Fire Punch from the Como. As you see, I'm not going to knock him out with Bullet Punch here. Able to take that Fire Punch reasonably well and be able to pick up the 1-0 victory here over Miso in the semifinals. So very good game to Miso, very close match. I definitely should have played around the Vaporeon a little bit better. Shouldn't have sacked off my Celebi so early in the game. I think that was a huge misplay by me. And then also, like, how does a team that has Celebi plus Volcanion have trouble with a freaking Vaporeon? I don't know. I really played poorly around the Vaporeon in the early game. Thankfully, we were able to get Toxic off on it and recover later in the game and kind of come out with the win here. But again, very good game to Miso. great season for him for sure. Going 8-1 is definitely no easy task in this league. So really good job by Miso this season, and it came down to the wire here. Like if I didn't have that Akaberry, he's in finals right now. So definitely clutch Akaberry coming through there. We're in finals, guaranteed promotion to Oblivion for the next season, but obviously we still want that championship. So we're actually facing Muck Muck next week in the finals for the OLT, and you guys will see that video on my channel as well. Getting pretty close to the end of the season here, going into finals. Hopefully you guys can stick around for one more game here in the OLT, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Later.